Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and we have already received a little bit of the Paladin rework news, albeit it is a bit clunky news because it is just data mined. I want to start off by saying I'm not like a data mining expert. I don't know exactly what to make of all this stuff, like as far as these aura modifiers and stuff like that. That's not my specialty. I'm not a data miner. I don't know exactly what all this stuff means. I just play the game, man. That's what I do. So, I am going to give my opinions on stuff though, and I have looked at some other people's thoughts on it. And most people's thoughts are honestly like they're not sure exactly what this might mean, but you can kind of have educated guesses and stuff like that. So I'm going to go through all these changes and talk about them a little bit. I'm also going to talk about some spells that were kind of found as well. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into them until like it comes out officially because they could be PvP talents, they could be spells that were just discarded or whatever. But there's some really interesting spells that kind of, I mean, honestly, kind of go along with what I was asking for coming into Dragonflight. So let's go ahead and get started here. So Divine Protection reduces all damage you take by 20% for 8 seconds. Now, from what my takeaway from this is that at the very least, Divine Protection will go down to 1 minute cooldown. So reduction of cooldown. And I've seen people speculate that maybe this means that it's going to be baseline as well. So having Divine Protection, then in theory, you could also have Shield of Vengeance. So you'd have 2 defensive cooldowns instead of 1. Obviously, that would be the best case scenario when it comes to that. Defensively, we're not the best things in the world. So to have Divine Protection and the Shield of Vengeance as defensive cooldowns would be quite good if that is the case. At the very least, so I do believe that this is going to be a 1 minute cooldown, if nothing else. So it's a great change either way. If we have to still choose, it's not as great because you're probably still going to take shield most of the time because it's also a DPS increase. But if it's baseline, that is absolutely spectacular. Let's talk about this one. So the next change here is honestly the one that people probably sleep on the most. But if you watch my channel, you'll know that this might be the most important one. Art of War. Your auto text now from 12 to 20% chance to reset the cooldown of Blade of Justice. Change it from 12 to 20. Why is this a big deal? So it's a big deal because of, let's go ahead and flip into game here real quick. It's a big deal because of Ashes to Ashes. Now, are they getting rid of Ashes to Ashes or something? I guess they could. I hope not, though. I only say that because I think I saw some people speculating that maybe they get rid of Ashes to Ashes, but having Seraphim proc like it did in season 4, season 3 of Shadowlands with the set bonuses, have it proc more often makes Seraphim less valuable. And so right now, Seraphim, you take it for everything, and I really don't like that personally, especially for AoE. I really want to take Sanctified Wrath for AoE at the very least, and so I hope that ends up being the case. If nothing else, Art of War proccing more is just makes the spec more fun. At the very, very least. So at the best, it maybe modifies the effectiveness of Seraphim. And at the worst, it just still makes it more fun to play. So as far as having fun goes, this was my number one thing. I wanted Art of War procs to go up to have more fun. Blade of Justice. Pierces an enemy with the Blade of Light, dealing a percent of attack power. And then there's a Blade of Vengeance. This does damage to enemies within 6 yards. So this is like a AoE, like a cleave, right? And stuns undead for 5 seconds. Cooldown change from 12 seconds to a 12-second recharge. And charges change from none to 1 charges. So it looks like you might get 2 uses of this as well. Now this has been speculated to be a talent point. I saw some people speculating that this would replace Exorcism. I don't know where they got that from, but I saw multiple people say that. So I don't know if there's any life to that or not. Obviously, I'll check this out on the PTR when it's available. But this seems really, really cool, right? So Blade of Vengeance, now this is something that I talked about. Make Blade of Vengeance also be able to cleave, kind of like Starfire for Druids, right? Was kind of the example that I gave. And so Blade of Vengeance is going to be able to cleave, whether that's a talent or whatever. They could make it a talent on the right side of the tree that are the talents that aren't currently used for Blade of Justice in anybody's builds, or like some people were saying, it's going to replace Exorcism. No idea where they get that from. Obviously, I don't read anything about that here, but It is what it is. So execution sentence, not my favorite in the world, but the cooldowns change from 1 minute to 45 seconds. This aligns it with Seraphim. It's very notable there. So could there be a Seraphim execution sentence build? Perhaps. Maybe some fights 45-second cooldowns work better than a minute cooldown. That's very possible as well. So that's an interesting thing right there. 45-second cooldown aligning perfectly with Seraphim. Now obviously it would not align with your Final Reckoning perfectly. So would you be using like Final Verdict, Seraphim execution sentence, and not using Divine Toll at all? That's possible as well. We'll see what their plans are here, because who knows how there's other stuff. There's other stuff that maybe we're not seeing that could, you know, synergize, and we'll see where they're going with this. But the obvious conclusion is that they're trying to make it line up with Seraphim, right? That's the obvious conclusion. Expurg, your Blade of Justice causes your target to burn. So it used to be critical strikes. Now it's all of your Blade of Justice, cause them to burn for 60% of the damage dealt over 6 seconds. Stuns demon and undead targets for 5 seconds. So I'm assuming that's with this Blade of Vengeance talent or whatever this ends up being, that stuns them or whatever. And it's just kind of playing off of that. Expiration is playing off of that. Final Verdict unleashes a powerful thing. So what's changed here is range from 10 to 20 yards. This is pretty cool. Final Verdict already has great range. Being able to play it from very far range is even better. Obviously gives you more uptime, right? That's good. Improved Judgment reduces the cooldown of Judgment by 2 seconds instead of 1, and Crusader Strike by 2 seconds. So Judgment becomes really, you know, slightly better to press, essentially, right? Apply Aura, mod cooldown. See, this is the stuff I don't know. Oh, name change from Improved Judgment to Swift Justice as well. Justicar's Vengeance. So this is interesting. Focuses Holy Energy to deliver a powerful weapon strike that deals 140% attack power, holy strike damage. So, you know, I kind of outsourced this to my guild, actually, saying what's holy strike damage, and they were saying that's probably like holy plus physical damage, and this makes a lot of sense on some other stuff that I saw. So this Justicar's Vengeance might be holy and physical damage. Restores health, and the cost changed from 3 holy power to 2 holy power. So, you know, I don't know exactly how. Obviously, less holy power, so damage per holy power matters. So, does it make it really good for single target again? Do they want us to use this for single target? That's an interesting thing. It definitely keeps us alive more. But with the set bonus affecting our Templar's Verdict, it obviously wouldn't feel good to be using Justicar's Vengeance and not even using our set bonus at all. Vanguard's Momentum. Hammer of Wrath has 1 extra charge. Now, I've seen a lot of people, when we start talking about these ranks of Vanguard's Momentum, there's some people that were like, you know, very hesitant to believe this is true, but this could just be way overtuned. It could be whatever. Hammer of Wrath has 1 extra charge, 10% increased critical strike on enemies below 20% health, generates 1 additional holy power. So, you know, very good execute on enemies below 20% health, right? So this kind of Vanguard's Momentum becomes an execute talent, essentially. Rank 1 Hammer of Wrath has 2 extra charges, and rank 2 Hammer of Wrath has 4 extra charges. 10% increased critical strike chance, and enemies below 20% health generate 4 additional holy power. So you literally can Hammer of Wrath, spend, Hammer of Wrath, spend, Hammer of Wrath, spend. That is actually a really, really fun way to play. So I would actually be fine with that. There was something, was it Torghast? Something you could play like that. I would love to remember what that was. There was something, it might have been a Torghast power, and it was really fun. If that is the case, you could literally like just press Hammer of Wrath and then spend. It might be maybe it's even a Cobalt Assembly thing or something like that. I'm not sure, but there was something where that was the case, where you could just press Hammer of Wrath and spend, and it's actually quite fun. If that is the case, and you become an ultimate execute spec at that point. Let's go over down here to Wake of Ashes. Wake of Ashes, lash out at your enemies, dealing, you know, radiant damage, 14 yards up from 12 yards, so a little bit more range. And it looks like they've baked Truth's Wake into Wake of Ashes. So right now, Truth's Wake's a talent down to the right of Wake of Ashes. And it looks like they're just baking it in, getting rid of it. And it reduces their movement speed by 50% and burning them. So you have the burn baked in. reducing the movement speed by 50% for 10 seconds, which is higher. Damage reduced on secondary targets, all that kind of stuff. Radius was changed and stuff like that. I don't know exactly what all this stuff means. Cooldown change. Oh, then the right here, I do know what this means though. Cooldown change from 45 seconds to 30 seconds. So a 30-second cooldown on Wake of Ashes instead of 45 seconds. I assume that means that maybe they're going to get rid of the reset on it as well. So maybe it'll just be maybe Wake of Ashes will become a Wake of Ashes Radiant Decree choice, and then you don't have like the little triangle underneath it or something like that. That's definitely something that could be the case when it comes to that. When it comes to down here, this talent, Seal of Order, Blessing of Dawn, this is really just a tooltip change, I believe. Your damage is increased by additional 4%, Blessing of Dusk in the Dusk. I think it's just kind of changing what it says to actually be what it does. Because I think it was slightly, I think the tooltip said something slightly different than what it did. So I believe that's the change there. I could be wrong, but I believe that's the change there at the bottom there. So these are all the ret changes. Now I did see some people data mining some spells. These are actually very interesting. In fact, because for example, a lot of them are like increasing our range. So we see the increased range to Final Verdict. We saw an increased range to Truce Wake on these notes. I saw an increase of Blade of Justice on like a talent thing, and an increase of Hammer of Justice to 20 yards as well. I saw there's all kinds of things, but what it looks like, and if I had to just take a guess, right, it looks like maybe they're trying to imagine ret as kind of a mini ranged melee, like not ranged, right, but being able to play at 5-10 yards away comfortably, right? So to make up for our lack of mobility, this is again my theory, to make up for the lack of mobility, they allow us to play a little bit further off the boss, so the runouts are easier, right? And then when we're running back in, we get to start to DPS a little bit sooner. So instead of increasing mobility, they increase our range, essentially, is kind of what it looks like they're trying to do. I'm overall fine with that because I think it's actually fun to play like that, and it's fun to play a little bit by yourself as a Rat Paladin. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just my own personal thing. Like to kind of like, I don't mind standing 10 yards behind the melee as long as there's not a mechanic. Obviously, if there's a stack mechanic, you need to stack, right, in a raid format or whatever. But in Mythic Plus, it allows you to not be stacked with the group. It allows you to be away from spiteful ads, let's say, right, that come out. And I like the idea if that is where they're going with this. It also seems like they're willing to buff us a little bit. Like with the Vanguard's momentum stuff, it looks like they're willing to say, hey, we're going to let you be. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be this strong, right, when it comes out. But it looks like they're willing to say, hey, you can be a really good execute class. If nothing else, you're really good at executing bosses. And that can be very valuable. So I like the idea that they're willing to make us be really good at something, right? Instead of like middling in most things, is where we kind of are. I like the idea that they are doing something to deal with the fun aspect as well with Art of War. So all these things are very positive. I'm very positive about all these things. Very excited, frankly, that we're seeing the stuff come out already. And obviously, as this stuff hits PTR, I'll be trying it out. I will be on PTR trying it out and actually like giving my feedback. Of course, I'm going to give my feedback. I'll write a forum post, all that kind of stuff. But I'm really excited. I'll be here with you through this whole ret rework with all the latest information. You know, come back, and every time there's a new update, I will be updating, unless it's so small that, like, if they change something from 20% to 18% or something, you know, that doesn't necessarily constitute a video. But every time there's a dump of information or I find something new out by playing, you know, I will do an update, and, you know, you can find that here on this channel. So as always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. And other than that, everybody have a good one.